Okay, everyone. This project we are going to create the final assembly of the skateboard or trailboard or mountain board. I'll show you a few tricks along the way. You do have to have an exploded board, okay? So make sure you do that in addition to what you see here in section view, balloons. You don't have to have all the nuts and bolts for this whole assembly. The reason we're not doing them all is because some of you are using the server and they will get lost. It saves the location of the files for nuts and bolts on a C drive, and on a server that usually gets wiped out when you log off. But you do have to put some of them in, so make sure that once you finish this project, you finish it all the way, save the DWG drawing, upload it for a grade, and then log off out of Inventor and log off out of the VMware. Now if you're doing it on your own laptop, it should be fine. Okay. So let's go to Inventor. One other thing I want to say real quickly here is I didn't push starting your own project very much because so many people were using the server in the beginning, including me. But you do want to basically have a project started up. It makes all the files stay together and not get messed up so much better. So to do that's pretty easy. You just hit new. So if you're doing your personal project later, make sure you start your own project. So you go to projects and you just hit new here and just hit yes, yes, yes. Give it a name. I'll show you here. Yes, it's always single year next. I'm going to cancel out because I'm already in one. Make sure you put it on whatever drive you want it to be at. Give it a name right here. Hit next. I think that's all you got to do. You actually could hit finish back there, but I'm not going to. And then you'll be in that project when you start. Okay. I am in the trailboard project here, so then that keeps things together a little bit better. But you don't have to be to do this. Okay. So we want to start a new assembly. You can pick this button or hit new assembly. When you pick new assembly, make sure you don't pick a weldment. We're not doing weldment IAMs yet. Okay, we will be eventually. Just make sure you pick a standard or the one over here as well. It's the same thing. This one works too, so just don't pick weldment yet. Just like don't pick sheet metal part unless you're doing sheet metal. It's saying that it's going to be an ANSI. Okay, and the first thing we want to do is place board in. You always want to place usually the part that has the beginning or the bottom or has the most parts attached to it, and that would be the board. So right there it is. Hit open, and this is a big deal. A lot of people forget to do this. The first part that comes in, always right click and place grounded at origin. Okay, don't forget to do that. All right, now I'm going to turn these planes off here in a minute and show you how to make a couple in case you run into that too, because that's another problem some students run into. Next thing we want to do is bring in our sub-assemblies that we made. Okay, hopefully we don't have any problems with it. If we do, I might have to pause the video for a minute. So I've got my mountain board truck here without any nuts and bolts in it. I'm just bringing in one of these because we're going to mirror them over. I'm not bringing in two, even though there's two there, and I'm doing that on purpose. Okay, and I'm going to place my wheel assembly. Notice it says IAM for wheel assembly, right? Okay, I had a little bit of trouble with the wheel, so I'm going to show you what happened. So I'm bringing my wheel assembly. I did put nuts and bolts on it the other day, and see what happens when I must have did this on the server because it can't find a 1/4-20 1.5 inch bolt. It says it doesn't know where it's at, so I'm just going to skip it. Okay, and it can't find the 3/8/16 bolt in there either. It must be a nut, so it can't find it. Okay, that's all right. It just says it can't find. Okay, what I was talking about with that wheel was that it had, just as I was worried about, it had problems with the nuts and bolts. So I actually had to open the wheel itself in a separate file. Just open it and delete those bolts out of there so it quit giving me errors. Okay, so you might have to do that if you have extra bolts in your subassembly and you can't find them back. Okay, I'm just bringing one in again. And let's put some bolts on. Let's do the wheel first. Put a few bolts on it. We'll save it, and then we'll bring it back in. So to open this subassembly, it's real easy. Just double click on it there, or double click on it here. Okay, now I'm in this subassembly. These are grayed out. Incidentally, the way I changed the colors of these items, I just hit return to get back to the thing. I'll show you real quick here. Try to. So if I want to change the color of an item, I can just double click on that part. It opens that part, or opens that subassembly. Now I'm double clicking on that part and I'm in that part. Okay, and I can just change it to whatever I want color wise. And medium sky blue. Okay, it was already that color anyway because I did it in the subassembly, but you want to do it in a part, and then you want to save it if you want to keep it that color. Okay, before you return. Okay, now I'm returning to the subassembly. I just hit return. I'm back in the subassembly. Hit save. Now I'm going to return to the main assembly, because you got to remember you're stepping down here. I was in the main assembly with all these and subassembly, so now I always save again too, just to make sure everything keeps saving. Return. It should say yes to all when you do it anyway. But that's how you change the color of any item. Just double click it. I'm going to add some bolts to this subassembly, so I'm going to double click on it. Now I'm in this subassembly. Notice all the parts are there. I'll have to return to get back into the main assembly. All right. The subassembly is just like a big assembly, except it's just, you can bring one piece in at a time. Okay, this wheel looks real good. Everything looks right on it. All right, so this is the outside of the wheel, so I'm going to want to put the bolts there and the nuts on this side because it just looks prettier, right? So let's do that. We'll go to drop down to place from content center. If I look at the example here, it says number, what bolts are there? There's a nut 15. There's bolt number 14 right here. So 14 and 15. It says quarter 20, 2-inch long, hexagon socket head cap screw. That's the bolt. The nut is number 15 in the item number, right? Number 15. There's 12 of each of these because it's 3 in each wheel and there's 4 wheels. It's a quarter 20 nut, hex nut. It's real simple. All right, so let's make sure we get those only. So you always look back at your bill of material to figure out what nuts and bolts you have. It's all in here on the balloons. Okay, so you can track it down by item number. The balloons match the item numbers, quantities match how many are on there, and of course the parts list is type in the description. Okay, so let's go back to Inventor here. All right, so what I did, it remembered where I was last time I was in here. So yours probably looks like that. So first thing you want to do is double click on fasteners, okay, and then bolts. Okay, notice there's a lot more other items in here that we're not getting into. Tube pipe, shafts, sheet metal, molds, washers, rivets, everything. There's also nuts, bolts, belts, and everything else in this thing. Cables, harnesses. All right, so we're in bolts, and it says socket head on that bolt. So we want to get, that's an industrial bolt. So you would see these all over the place. They take a little Allen wrench to use them. You see that? Looks like usually that typically like that. Okay, with a little Allen wrench hole in the top of them. And they're about halfway down is just a standard hexagon socket head cap screw. These are the kind you could buy at most hardware stores, Rural King and so on. Okay, I'm just going to double click on it. Now be careful, if you zoom in too big, it'll try to put a giant one in here. So what I'm trying to do is hover over that circle, not the cylinder, just the circle. And I waited too long, so of course it gives me different options. So I'm picking that circle. Now you get several options here. One is auto drop, which is fine if you designed it perfectly to match the programmer's intent here. But I always make my bolts two size so they kind of they line everything up. Now in the real world, you'd usually make the bolts a little bit oversized and you'd have dowel pins to help line this thing up. But that's a lot more work, so we didn't do that. And it doesn't make a big difference on this plastic wheel that's 3D printed. Okay, it's got an inner tube on the inside of it. So this will auto drop the wrong size bolts. So the first thing I have to do is change size, which is that one. And there's different ones here. You can change size here by dragging that will change the length of it, but it won't change the diameter of it, I don't think. Let's see. See, it's giving me a 1024, and this thing's supposed to be like 2 inches long. I think 1.5 inches is plenty long, so I'm only going to go that long. But I still got a problem. It's still the wrong size. It's supposed to be quarter 20 because it's making it undersized. Now I did auto drop these even when I picked change size, which is awesome. Sometimes that doesn't work. Notice it auto dropped in 3 spots, even though I just picked one. So there's my quarter 20. It already is 1.5 inches because I drug it that far. It's coarse instead of fine. It's what I want. I hit OK. So those are done. Now if it doesn't drop, auto drop, then you got to do it 3 times. Okay, so that's finished. And if it's on your laptop, they'll stay there. If it's not on, if it's on the network, when you log off, they're going to be lost, and you're going to have to hit skip when you load in this assembly, because it won't be able to find that file because they'll be gone. All right, so now I'll put the nuts on too. It's kind of the same way. Place from content center, place from content center, and it's awful slow, isn't it? Okay, so there's the bolts. I'm gonna shrink that down a little bit, and there's washers, nuts. Okay, hex, just plain old hex, nothing fancy here. And we just want to, I usually try to pick the standards you'd see everywhere else. So hex, nut, inch. Doesn't get any simpler than that. Okay, and now it just wants to know, it tells you what to look for. Select a threaded cylinder. Okay, there we go, got it. And now what's it say to do? Select a planar face. Now that's the face, the base of the nut needs to be on, which is right here, not the base of that, right? Okay, and now auto drop. I think I can hit check mark here. Let's pray it works. Should. Nope, it didn't. So anyway, pick that one. Pick this face. It's semi-automatic, right? Cylinder and face. Make sure you get the right face. Don't go too fast and get the wrong face. Then you have nuts in the wrong place there. So right click and hit apply when it's all done. And you can change the size here, I guess, a little bit, but did it right, so I'm not going to. Okay, and it wants to do more, so I can just hit escape at this point because they're all in there. All right, now we've got our nuts and bolts in there. Now I want to make sure I save this before I return. So save. So this subassembly now has nuts and bolts in it, and it'll stay in there until you log off of VMware. Okay, return. So now I'm back in the big assembly with, and I have nuts and bolts. You would do the same thing for this. You don't have to, but the nuts also go in this, and you can see them on a bill of material. All right, there's a bunch of bolts and nuts holding this whole thing together. All right, I'll show you how to do a few more here in a minute. I think we will put the nuts, and I do want you to put the nuts and bolts that hold this base plate to the skateboard. So let's go ahead and put them in there too, because I just want you to get some more practice on it. And so I'll do it as fast as I can here. So place from content center, place from content center. Okay, if you look at bill of material from memory, these are 1024 button head cap screws. Okay, so what a button head is, it's round, so when you put your feet on this skateboard here, it doesn't bust your toes on it. So they are in, of course, fasteners and bolts, and they're on a round head. You'd think it's a socket head or button head socket head cap screw, but they are in the round head. And I think it's about 4 rows down. Here it is, hexagon socket. So it's similar to the other ones except it's rounded. Okay, that's a hexagon socket button head cap screw. These are also, you'll see them like every maintenance shop has a million of them because machines carry them. Okay, now this one, I don't think it might pick the right size. Yep, it actually is picking the right size. Hallelujah. All right, so I'm gonna pick that, and now I should be able to hit auto drop because it looked like it picked the right size. It's 1 inch. I don't think that's long enough. Oh boy, better look at the drawing here. Thought I had my memory here. 18. It is 1 inch. Okay, I guess 1 is long enough. Okay, and it says it's, how long was it making it there? It's making it 1 good. I think it made it the right size. So if it doesn't, drag that red thing along until you get 1. If you have to change the size, there's the change size. It's going to drop all 4 of them in, hopefully. Picked auto drop there, and you can see the red circle showed up. Check mark. Yep, looks good. And our coarse version of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm gonna just right click and hit apply, or I should have right clicked, pick done. Okay, I got one sitting in nowhere land, so I should hit done. All right, so pick that and delete it. Let's do keyboard. Okay, left pick it with your mouse and hit the delete to get rid of anything. All right, so it looks pretty good. I've got most nuts and bolts in this. Not there's a whole bunch of them yet in this, but we're not going to do them. All right, so let's try to put this thing on here. If you have these planes available, So you can mirror things. That's awesome. Say you don't, because we're going to basically put these on the correct location and then mirror them around. If you don't have these planes available, there's a couple ways to make them. All right. So this is a board. So I go over here to my browser and find board. It's the first one I put in. And notice it's grounded. All right. It's got the grounded mark on it. So I'm going to expand everything until I see those planes. There's one plane right there. So if you ever want to hide them, well, this one's already hidden. These two are not hidden. I kept expanding. Now these are the two mid planes. I must have opened them when I saved them. So if you want to make them visible and invisible, you just pick on them with left mouse and right click to make them visible, and left click to make them there. Now they're invisible. Okay, so I'm just right clicking to get that menu. All right, so I want those visible. Say I didn't have them though. I got kind of lucky they were in the origin there. But you should have them because you made the board. But if you don't have them, you can make the planes too. Remember how I talked about making a plane 3 points? All right, so let's make one that's in the middle. So I go to plane. Two easy ones, mid plane between two planes. You could pick two planes and make it in the middle of that one. If that doesn't work, the tried and true method is always the midpoint of 3 lines that cross each other. So 3 points. So as long as I didn't mess up designing this, I can pick the midpoint of that. Any 3 points that are going to make this plane. I can't see the bottom of it. There it is. So those 3 points split this plane right in half. See, and I could do the same thing from here, here, and down there to get the next one. And I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to turn it on. But if you need to make another one that splits it, you can always do that with 3 points too. Okay, or use a mid plane. There's lots of options in here. I use that one a lot. I use 3 points a lot. Offset from any other plane, however many inches you type in, use that one a lot. I don't use the rest of them very often. Once in a while you want to make a tangent one. Okay, or a normal through. If you get real complicated stuff, you might have to make something normal through a point. There's a lot of ones that you have to use once in a while there. Okay, so we're ready to put these parts on there, I think, and mirror them around. There's a couple tricks here. First, we need to constrain them. So I don't know. I guess put the wheel on first. That way it'll lock in. So there's a couple things here you don't really know about. So this bearing, there's a bearing that sits in this cavity. Okay, so we didn't put the bearing in it because it's hard to find it in the place from content center, and it just doesn't work as perfectly. So I'm not putting it in there right now in the interest of time. But there would be a bearing, and so the shaft sits flush with right here, and so does the bolt that holds this thing on. Okay, because there's a bearing that takes up this whole cavity. So just so you know that. All right. So first thing we want to constrain. Let's just constrain the wheel to the shaft. So we find anything with a center line. See that center line I got right there? Okay, and a center line with this one. Okay, and then a lot of times you got to pick a line. Okay, and apply. As long as those aligned, it'll let me put it about anywhere I want. Did it spin? It spun it around. Okay, see how? I'm glad that happened. I can show you hopefully how to fix it. Notice now I've got my nuts and bolts on the wrong side. Well, I've got a couple options here. I could put this wheel on that side and then mirror it later, and it'd be fine. That's what I'm gonna do. Or I could pick another option is I could just pick this face and this face, and it should flip it. Apply. And they gave me an error because when I aligned it, it didn't like it. So I'm just gonna pick this face in the back of that other one and take the easy way out. I could delete that constraint and pick opposed on the other one. It probably would have worked. Apply. Okay. Alright, so that constraint I was talking about, all these things like this wheel assembly, if I expand it, those constraints I made are always over here, and they're the last things I did, so they're right here. There's the first one I did that was causing a problem. You can right click on that and edit it, and I probably should have picked opposed, and then it wouldn't have flipped it. Alright, so you can always change things after the fact. You can always go in there and delete them too, but it's because if you keep doing more and more constraints and not deleting the ones you just did, of course you're just going to break the crap out of it. So it only took 2 constraints to fully lock this wheel down because it's supposed to spin. See how it's spinning? Okay. And use colors to make your design cool. You know, you can't. I know it's hard to buy things that are blue wheels and so forth, but it does make them look nice. You know, and you can buy some things like that if you sell them. You know, if the colors bring really good views to your designs. All right, so let's mirror this over to the other side. You can kind of pick your battle, which one you want to do first, right? I'm gonna go ahead and put this on the board first and then mirror it, I guess. Because it'll just be easier. So I'm gonna hit constrain now. and I'm going to have to line up this base of that rubber bushing with the back side right here, right? And it doesn't matter if you do this one or that one, they're the same thing anyway, so I'm just going to pick this one. Okay, and that lined them up, hit apply. Now you got to start thinking a little bit. Okay, so if you look at the trail board, the big bolt that holds through the two big bushings is on the inside of the board. Okay, see that big bolt's on the inside, so make sure you do it, because you can do it backward and it actually does work, but of course when you lean on your board it won't turn very well, but it will fit on there. So the big bolt going through these two big bushings right here is on the inside of the board. So to do that, like this bolt has to be, you have to put the bolts where they're theoretically possible, or inventor will give you an error. So I'm going to put this bolt in that hole, and then I put this bolt in this hole. I can't put this bolt in this hole and then try to put this one in this one, or a cattywampus over here. It just won't reach. It won't work. So you got to think about things when you're doing them a little bit, right? So I'm going to pick this cylinder, and I've already got planes lined up, so I know they're the right height in this cylinder. Tape and apply. Okay, and I'm going to close this so I can actually see. You can pick through the part, but it's pretty hard. So I just closed it so I could spin it a little bit and I could see everything a little bit better. Go to the back side so I can see it even better. Constrain. And I've got that one in, so I've almost lost where I was at here. That cylinder and this cylinder. Okay, and if you pick the wrong one, of course it won't work because it's not possible. Alright, so now I've got this thing on the bottom, and I've got one wheel on it. And that's about the hardest part. It gets pretty easy after that. I've got lots of center planes and everything. It's a good place to save probably. So save. I'll call this board assembly, I guess. All caps. Now mine shouldn't lose the nuts and bolts. I always say yes to all. You always want to save everything. I don't know why you'd want to not save everything. Okay, it's saving everything now. Alright, I think we're ready to mirror. Now one thing about when you mirror things, okay, so all the parts that are mirrored together will keep all their constraints together. But I'm going to mirror this across the shaft. Now this is attached to the shaft, but I'm not mirroring the shaft because I'd end up with two shafts. Well, since I didn't mirror the shaft, it's going to lose the constraints between the wheel and the shaft. And you just have to reapply them. That's the way it is. Or either that or don't ever move them. But the right way is to reapply them. So mirror, and I want to pick on that subassembly. Okay, and if it's a subassembly, it'll pick them all, which is cool. Okay, that's one of the reasons I put the nuts in there before that. Notice that most of these are green, except for the nuts and bolts. Make sure you pick that so they turn yellow. Because otherwise it's going to, unless you want a new part, because it will actually create a new part cut with an MIR on the end of it, and you'll have a whole bunch of new files. Okay, I'll show you. So if I leave this green and I go to, it wants me to grab a mirror plane, so I'll pick a mirror plane, pick that one that's actually in the middle that's going to mirror across. Okay, and if I go to next, see all these new parts I'm getting? I don't want them. It's actually going to make them. So where's back at? Return to selection. Make it yellow. Next. And if you're going to modify them and put holes in them that are different than this, and that's the way to do it. But rarely do you do that, which by default it was the other way. Alright, there's no new parts, so hit OK. So I've got that in here. Now notice this thing moves. Alright, it's not locked on anything. We just lost everything. Well, that's because we didn't mirror the shaft. We just mirrored the wheel. Okay, so now we got to constrain it again. Constrain, it's pretty easy anyway. Pick that, pick a cylinder, apply. And I just hopefully it went to the right one. It surely did. It didn't flip, did it? Good. And then I'm gonna drag this thing over here so I can see what I'm doing. And then again from this face right up. It's not letting me pick that, so I'm gonna cancel. Drag it out of there, maybe because I moved it. Constrain this face. I did get the other one already on there though, and then this face. Okay, make sure you get the right faces. I did that pretty fast. Remember I talked about that bearing. See, I picked that one right. If you're getting that arrow, that means you've got the plane. If you don't get that arrow, you don't have the plane. So center lines on cylinders you're looking for, little arrows on plane. Apply. Okay, so this thing's done. Now this thing's together. Now we're going to mirror this whole system across here. Now the wheels will not lose their constraints next time because when I mirror them across the other side, because we're mirroring the shaft with it. Okay, now the base, which is getting mirrored, we had the constraints from base here to the board, and those constraints will get lost because we're not mirroring the board. So you will have to redo them again, but it only takes a minute. So mirror. Now I probably won't do it, but I expect you to do it. Pick components. So boom, boom. Pick your 3 sub-assemblies. Okay, some of them notice are green. We'll go to the very top and pick the very first one, and they'll all turn yellow. Right. And then for the mirror plane, make sure you have the right mirror plane to go across and hit next. And if you do it all right, no errors, it should work real nice like that. And I've got an error. It's just saying some of the components failed. If you scroll down here all the way, it says relationship with is inconsistent or suppressed. It lost basically the constraints, except that's fine. Okay. So again, you can move this thing. Well, it's halfway broke. It doesn't like it. All right, I'm just going to leave it there. If yours doesn't move, call it good. If it moves, reconstrain it. You can, and if you break it, you can always hit undo. All right, so that's pretty much done. Looks pretty darn cool, right? All right, so a couple more nuts and bolts. We've got the washers. Did I forget to mirror the washers? Well, when you're doing it, also mirror the nuts over there. Okay. Don't forget to do that. All right, I'm also going to put the washers and nuts on this side, right? And I noticed I did this wrong, and if you followed my wrong example, I'll take it. But the bolts should be going. I shouldn't have put the bolts in first. I should put them in second in reality, because I want the button heads on top so I don't bust my toes on those nuts. Okay, so that's just a minor little error. I'm not going to make you redo it, but realize that the bolts should have probably went in the top. When you're doing things like that, you always want to make it user friendly and not bust your toes on the little bolts sticking through there. All right, so I'm going to place some washers on here. Place from content center. Washers are kind of a pain. If you look in the drawing, it says plain washers. They're down here, and there's one I'm actually called plain washer. Plain. And there's one called plain washer down here. I think they're alphabeticalized, so look for plain. There it is, P. Okay. And I think it'll make it the right size. I sure hope so. It sure the heck ought to. And wants me to pick a plainer face after I pick it. And I'm going to pick change size just to see what size it gave me. Oh, it's giving me millimeter. I really don't want millimeter. Cancel. Delete. So I picked it over there and delete, and going to try again here. Place from content center. It should bring me to the same place. I must have grabbed metric, I guess. So don't do that. Oh my god, it took forever to load. But yeah, you can see I grabbed metric. The faster you go, the longer it takes, right? Okay, let's try to do this right this time. Inch. Grab a cylinder. Grab a face, and it's number 10, which is what I want. See that number 10 on there? Sometimes it tries to give you number 12, which I don't want. If I picked this cylinder right here, I probably would have got number 12. So if I picked the bolt, so I got the right one. I already picked that, so why is it asking me for this again? Okay. Planar face. There it came up. I thought it did all that already. Maybe I missed it. Alright, so I'm just going to hit apply. And hopefully it'll put them all in there. Looks like it might, probably won't. Number 10, A is fine. I mean, if you want to make them oversized, you can pick B. They're all going to be fine. Either one of them will be okay. They're just washer. So if it doesn't put them in there, I want you to put them all of them in there. Okay, I'm just going to pick one in the interest of time. All right, so right click, done. Now the nuts done the same way. We already did a nut, so you should know how to do that. So put the nuts on there too. Right, so I'm going to save this. Make sure you put the rest of the nuts and bolts at least in the board. Okay, for full credit, you got to have that. Save. I think that's everything. Okay, and now we're going to put these in a drawing. You should know how to do a section view by now. Real easy. We've done plenty of that, and all the other views should know all that. But you don't know how to do a presentation. So pretty quickly, I'm going to do a presentation, and then you have to put it into a drawing to match the other one with a presentation. Alright, so do presentation files real easy. You just go to File, New, and the bottom one's Presentation. Open that up, and then just bring in that item you just did. I probably should have saved first. Cancel. And let's go back to this board assembly and save it. I should have saved first. Save. Presentation. Insert model. And it's going to bring in the one I just did. There it is. Open. Hopefully it won't give me any error. It looks nice. Okay, so what you do here is this is an exploded view that you would give to like a customer. Alright. It's a little tricky, but not really. It's pretty easy. So tweak components lets you bring the parts apart. Try to take them apart like you would in the real world. Okay, so the first thing I would do in the real world is pull those bolts off, move them way out here. Then I'd pull this wheel half off. Then I'd pull the tire half off. Then I'd pull the inside wheel half off, and then maybe leave the nuts where they're at. And then the same thing with these. So I'm gonna try to do that. It's a little tricky on getting it right, but just like the idea is to take it apart like you really would. Okay, and then you can make a little video of it and everything else. You have to take snapshots of it so you can put it in your drawing. That's what actually goes into the drawing. So tweak components, and first one I said was this one. Hold down the control key to pick all three of them. Okay, I've got them all three, and then grab the arrow that looks like it's going in the correct direction off your UCS. And then it's looking for a distance here, I don't know, 10. That's far enough out that I can get the rest of the stuff in there. I should have said -10, but over here in your browser is where it's at. So I'm going to pick on it. Oh, I got to expand it first, sorry. And then expand tweaks. And there's the first one. And it should have been -10. Good chance to show you how to fix stuff. And you can always change it after the fact if they're not far enough too. Alright, so I'm going to pick tweak. Grab that wheel half. That way. Start pulling it with my left mouse, dragging it. I don't know, -6. Now I know I hit -6 there, but I guess somehow I missed negative. Okay, and then I'm gonna grab this wheel, tweak, pull it out there. -4. Goodness gracious. All right, then this one, tweak, grab the arrows. -2. Okay, and you can see that nuts look pretty good where they're at. So I'm leaving them, and there's an extra nut in there. Looks like. All right. How do I delete that thing? Probably have to go back to the subsets. Go back. Where's that thing at here? I think I brought an extra nut in there somewhere. I don't know. I don't see it on here now. Well, anyway. If you have something extra like in there, go into your assembly, find it, and delete it. I can probably open it from in here. I see visibility. I don't want to make it invisible because that's really not the right thing to do. I can expand it here and probably find it too. But I'm not going to right now. So if you got something like that, go into your subassembly and delete it. Boy, that's driving me crazy. I'm going to pause this video and delete it. Okay, that nut was actually hidden inside the tire, so you didn't see it till I moved them apart. So that was a little tricky to find. Actually, I had to go basically pick on it and expand everything and find it in the browser and then delete it from inside the subassembly. So that was very annoying, but always a trick. Alright, so those are done. Now the next thing to do is basically pull apart this truck. That's a little trickier. Okay, so tweak components. So I'm going to grab this whole shaft system there. And hold down my control and pick this shaft. Okay, then I'm gonna grab this arrow and pull it back. I don't know until it gets all the way out there, so I don't want to go too far though. So about a -8 looks like. Okay, all right, and now I can start taking this thing apart and probably pull the whole thing down first, and then is there any nuts and bolts? I got it easy. So I'm gonna window all these parts here. And tweak, and luckily it went by the base one. Pull them down a little bit so it looks like it's coming apart there. Okay, and then I'm going to probably the next one, I guess, get a lot easier once I get these done. Probably that one, tweak. It's getting to be a big file, so it's having some slowing down here a little bit. -1 halfway over there. Okay, and then keep doing that until you get all the way apart. So this one, control, hold down the control key to pick more than one. look at that one and tweak. Starting to lock up my computer. Who knows what's going to happen. -2. We're getting there though. Tweak. -1. It doesn't matter what order you do these in, really. It's hard to figure out what arrow I wanted there. -0.5. Let's just bring it. So that was the last one I did, so I'm going to go down and fix it. I didn't get negative. That's not big enough. Okay, that looks pretty good. Everything's separated. You can kind of see how it goes together. The arrow, the lines are showing the customer how it goes together. So, all right, now get to a good view. It's like a nice corner view. Make it not a mile big if you can help it, so you can see everything. It's kind of hard to get to a nice view. I want to twist this a little bit, but it's not too bad the way it is like that. Some of the things down here, so you can go all the way back together, you can go all the way separated, you can go a little bit at a time, one step at a time. You can create a video of it, so if you got a really complex thing to show the customer. Main thing I want you to do in this one is to create a drawing of it going apart, so I still don't really like that. There, see, I'd like to. That tweak is, if you just hover over them, you can see where there, that one. I don't really like that one. I wish it was maybe 1.5. There, now I can see it. Okay, so something like that, so you can see they're all separated. And you probably want to get rid of these planes. I don't think they'll show up though in the drawing. Let's see. So now let's just leave it like it is. Now I'll come back to it if I need to fix them. So save it. And that's fine. Save. Okay, put it in your drawing with your other views. I'll show you that. A couple little things there, and then we're going to end this video. New drawing. So you guys open up your template and put them in your template. All right. I'm just going to drop it into an existing one. And how big? Let's see here. D size is probably about right, and I think that's what it gave me. Yep. Because you need something big on this. I think 1 to 3 works good. 1 to 4 is a little small, but so base. Oh, I didn't make a snapshot. Cancel. I forgot to make a snapshot. Cancel. Cancel. And new snapshot. Okay, all it does is take a picture of your screen. Okay, no big deal. There it is. It's a little wide, but that's all right. I go back over here to, that won't make any difference anyway. To the drawing. Let's go ahead and save this. It's good to save it before you drop all that stuff in there usually. Alright, let's go to base. And now I made a snapshot, so I have a view here. If you can make like 10 of them and pick whichever one you want. So every time you do a snapshot, it's another one available there. 1 to 4, I'm going to try 1 to 3. It gets a little tight with 1 to 3, but it sure looks a lot better. It's bigger, right? Picking another thing, it'll show up. Alright, now that's not a pretty good view. Okay, you can kind of see it. You can't really see these very well. So I would say you really need to go back to this, and I should probably spin it a little bit more so I can see. It's just not a real there. That's better a little bit. I don't know, it's hard to find a perfect one. But it's nice if you can see these separated too. So I'm going to go with that one. Just do the best you can on it so you can actually see them coming apart. So it is a little tricky. But on mine you can't necessarily see the you can't necessarily see them the best. So the small parts of the truck. I always make it on something like this. I want to show off a little bit. I'd make it pure 3D. Now a lot of times drawings when you're sending them to a factory won't necessarily be like that, but because you don't necessarily have a color printer either. But so put this where it's going to be out of the way, which would probably be over here somewhere. Okay, and hit OK. And then bring in another base, and this one bring in your, instead of bringing that one in, go find your assembly, which is, where did I save this thing at? Wheel assembly, board assembly. Okay, I'm going to make that 3D as well. And that, of course, is not the view I want. So we want to look something like this. You gotta get all those views in there. Okay, so that's my first one, that's my second one, that's my 3D, and that's my section view. These are my balloons, and you can do so many balloons on each one if you want, or you can do them all at once. Notice I did them on 3 different places so I could see them better. That's the right way to do it. And do your bill of material. Alright. So that was the top face of it. So I'm going to basically pick that, get the right face. Finally got it. Put my side view, get my 3D view, and change it to 1.3. I probably have to move them all around so they'll fit, and hit OK. It's not too far off. That one a little bit, move this one down a little bit. Okay, maybe move this one a little bit more too. You gotta watch out, there's gonna be a bill of material over here. Alright, so section views are always section view. Pick your view, make sure you got the view picked, and you don't let you pick that hidden line or that little center point. So I should not have picked there. I just picked it. I should have hovered over it. So we're going to try again.